back. Yeah, they'll insert them, but the melody will be pentatonic, but the harmony. So here's the melody, right? It's pentatonic, but we have a dominant and a tonic there. And here's the fourth. And so that's the difference. They'll tend to be these major scale tones in the chords in the accompaniment, and probably because they had that bagpipe, and the bagpipe would make the chords. That's what I'm guessing. So, but they like to sing in pentatonic. So I think we hit all the areas of the world. I think we've gone completely politically incorrect. But I mean, it doesn't, I mean, that's the way it is. That's if you want to understand music and music history, these are the scales that they're using at the times that they're using them in the different parts of the world. And that's how we get the certain sounds that we get. So then there's one more. Um, can I go? We started a little bit late. Can I go a little bit late? So there's another one. I'm going to just erase all this just because I have no room left. Now let's go to jazz. Okay, so we have Fred Astaire, Frank Sinatra, all these guys. In jazz, what we do is we embellish the scale with accidentals. So if I want to take a melody like Camptown Races, Camptown ladies sing this song, doo-da. If I want to jazz it up, I'm just going to put some accidentals right before some certain notes in the melody. So I might have an A flat right before the A. So it's almost like Mozart did that a lot. That's not a good example. Yeah, grace notes and trills, that kind of thing. It's highly ornamented, but in terms of accidentals. Now we do have what's called a jazz scale. If you're a jazz player, they call it a jazz scale. If you're a blues player, they call it a blues scale. Now, in the old days, blues used to be what we think of as boogie woogie. These days, blues is kind of just musicians who don't really want to practice, and they just sit there and improvise on the blues scale for a very long time. So they'll just take something like this. And they'll just do a 1-4-5 chord progression, blues progression forever. And the joke is, what's the difference between a jazz player and a blues player? Blues, jazz. Because jazz, you actually have to know what you're doing. Right? You actually have to have some skill. So a jazz player will practice for 1,000 hours and play for 2 hours. A blues player will practice for 2 hours and play for 1,000 hours. That's right. But in the old days, if you go and look on the videos, the old blues guys, they really knew what they were doing. They were good. These days, not so much. So the definition has changed a little bit. So let's take a look at this. This is very interesting here. So let's take a minor scale. Okay, C, C minor, D, E flat. I'll put the flat above. F, G, A flat, B flat, and then C. That's just C natural minor. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take away the D. I'm just going to have it disappear. Maybe I'll draw it in yellow here. Okay. Now we have, now I'm going to take away the A flat as well. I'm going to take away the 2 and the 6. Just going to make them disappear. It's almost like now we have a pentatonic scale of some sort. D. Actually, we do have a pentatonic scale. A flat. We're not exactly, it's a minor pentatonic scale. We've transposed it. But that is indeed a pentatonic scale. So go ahead and play this scale right here. C, E flat, F, G, B flat, C. Yeah, and that is a pentatonic scale. So you could do that. You could transpose it to just the black keys. You can transpose it to any key. But we're going to insert a new note. We're going to insert this accidental here to embellish the scale. And we're going to insert a G flat in order to keep the flats. But we don't really like to call it a G flat because it's kind of the leading tone to a G flat. So we're going to call it an F sharp, which is strange because now we have a flat and a sharp in the scale, which you really can't do. So technically it's G flat, but we're going to call it F sharp because it just makes kind of more sense. F sharp. So now we have this. And that's the jazz scale. And you can improvise off that jazz scale quite easily, actually. I mean, you have to practice, of course, but you can make up melodies. If you want to look like you're this really cool pianist, you just improvise off that jazz scale. Jazz scale. And some people call it the blues scale. It's the same thing. So we have 1, flat 3, 4, flat 5, natural 5, flat 7. Now here I sharped 4. I didn't flat 5. But up here I'm writing it as flat 5. You can think of it either way. So if you play some 7th chords below, and then the last scale we have, not including the church modes, that's a whole different deal, is the chromatic scale. Chroma means color. And the sound spectrum and the color spectrum share the same frequency spectrum. One is a particle wave and the other is an air wave. Chromatic scale, and I know you know this. And that's just all half steps. That's 12 half steps. That's all 12 keys in our musical spectrum. 12 half steps. And then you're talking Liszt, Debussy, Chopin. Those guys like to do all that stuff. So we have major, natural minor, harmonic minor, melodic minor, pentatonic, the jazz scale, and the chromatic scale. And the different flavors, sound flavors that we get from those. Okay. Any questions? All right. Very well.